Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist. Today, we're going to be painting this adorable couple of cows, or I call them couple cows. So we do this in my painting classes in my studio. This is the inspiration for today. And if you're ever in our neck of the woods, you're always welcome to join us. We're headquartered out of Guthrie, Oklahoma. And so these are Highland cows and they're super cute. And we're doing something a little bit fun and different today. We're using a palette knife to create a lot of fun texture. We're going to do that towards the end of the painting. And then beginning, we're going to start with our brushstroke work. But it's a very fun, relaxing class, very therapeutic. And then there's also some nuance with the face too that we'll be working with here. And I'm going to guide you through it step by step. So everything that you need for this class is on our website, tipsyartist.com. We provide all the supplies, everything but water. So it's very easy, just tipsyartist.com, and you just go to where it says online classes or painting kits, and you can just find anything that you need. So we have it all right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to change camera views. So I give you a really nice up close aerial view of the process while I'm painting. But I did want to say hello first in my studio and give you a chance to look at the really nice inspiration piece. So this is, and I forgot to mention this too, this is from one of my original paintings that I have on my website. It's available and it's also for sale at Michael's. So I've got a little, just look for, you can just Google Tipsy Artist or Tiffany Bora Michael's, and I'll come right up, especially if you start saying Highland cows. It'll pull it right up for you. So if you want to just buy the print, then you can do that too. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and switch camera views here. And I need to make sure I press the right buttons. So let me put these on. And there we go. All right. Let's get a little bit closer. Get my inspiration in view so that I can see this. Oh, up against there it is. All right, so sorry about my reach over the top here. We're going to start getting in position. So I've got a few little. All right, so I think we're good now. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our supplies, and then we'll talk about the transfer process here. So with your kit, it does come with your paints and all of your tools. There's also an apron that it comes with too. And of course, this online class, there will be a smaller color visual in there with it too. Some napkins, apron, again, everything, these paint plates. You'll also have a couple of paint plates here. And the only thing you have to get is a water container and your water here nearby. So everything else comes with the painting kit there. And I am using that, but I like to use up my old paint. So I've got some older kits here that I'll be working from. But if you see a tube that, looks like this, don't worry. It's just because I'm using an older paint. I'm going to use up my existing supplies here. All right, so let's see. Let's go ahead and talk about the transfer paper here. So again, all this comes with the kit too. Your canvas panel, your traceable line art, your transfer paper, even a little tape you can use to help secure this. That's all going to be in there. So first things first, you want to make sure and center the transfer paper right in the middle of your canvas panel. And I also try to make sure that with this design, it just kind of comes right off the edge. So I basically just pull that down a little bit and then make sure that this is also lined up at the edge here. And I just tape up at the top. Another helpful hint here with your transfer paper, make sure that the dull gray side faces up and that the shiny black side faces your canvas. That will allow you to have that really nice transfer that will come down. Now let's talk about the how on this. We're going to start with a pencil. So I've got this, I tape down my transfer paper first, and I tape down the line art on top. Again, make sure that this is facing the right direction, your transfer paper that is. And then I'm going to be using my pencil, and I'll basically just draw right over the top. Every single place that I see a line, I just apply some firm pressure and draw right over the top of that. And then if it has a colored in area, I also make sure and color that in completely. And just using this line art as a guide, same thing here. I want to make sure and color that in really well so that it transfers. And then there's just a little bit of shading. Of course, that's all going to get painted over anyway. It's just a nice little reminder when you get to that step of, oh, there's a little bit of a, it's like a nice little reminder of this is a little bit more like shaded in with a darker color. But I use the side of the pencil for that, just to kind of give me that same look there. So I'll just do that here, a little bit of shading, a little bit here. Pretty optional on that step, but again, I like it because it just gives me that nice little reference of, hey, you're going to come in darker here, basically. And then all the hairs, I'm just going to just draw right over the top, just following that example there as you leave. Now I leave the sides free and clear with intention so that I can lift up through the process and check my work. Now I've worked ahead a little bit with the permanent marker. Initially, your transfer is going to be light and it's going to look just like pencil on your canvas. I'm going to bring that quite a bit closer so you can get an idea of what that would look like without the permanent marker. So I've done a lot of checking back and forth. I know that it all matches up and it's good. I've done all the detail work. That's super important because once you remove this, it's just really impossible to ever line it up exactly right where it was. So you just really want to double check again and again, make sure that you've got it all your tracing is done. Then you can go ahead and remove this. So I'm done with this. Okay, now let's talk about that permanent marker work. So this actually comes with your kit too. Every place that I see a nice hard line that I definitely want memory with, that I actually want to have bleed through the paint just a little bit, that actually really helps you out. Then I go ahead and do a dark line over that. So in this particular painting, I really want to make sure that I've got a reference of everything that I've done. You can just do a little pause right here if you want to, just so you can know, okay, what is it she did again? So again, just pause it and then go ahead and do your permanent marker. This has a nice, again, it bleeds through the paint a little bit, which is great for beginners because sometimes when you start to work with that paint, that graphite line can be so light that it can, before you know it, the paint can cover it up and you lose your guide to proceed to the next point. So this really helps keep that in place. So very helpful here. And I promise we obscure it. Once we start to lay that paint on it, that black line becomes obscured and it becomes just the right amount of shadow underneath the paint. So it's really a nice little trick there. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and take off my jacket here. I'm in my sunroom and it is cold outside today, but I'm right next to the heat of the windows. So I'm a little bit warm there. All right. So here we go. I'm going to place these two tools off to the side. We're done with those. And then let's go ahead and talk about the rest of our tools here that we're using. So we've got our napkins, we've got our little family of brushes. Yours will be brand new. Mine are a little bit loved here, but I've got my mama brush. And then I have little buddies, got the little flat top. And then I've got little bit brush. That's your smallest brush for details. And then we also have a palette knife today. Okay, so we'll be using that. And your palette knife might be a little bit different than this, but essentially it will perform some of the same details there. So we're just doing nice flat strokes, nothing too detailed with the palette knife. We're just a class for beginners, just kind of trying to get the feel of it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with our background first. So I need my titanium white, and on my little paint plate here, I do have a little bit of that lamp black out, because that's going to be helpful for gray here just a little bit. But in terms of starting point and quantity, I have a lot out because I've been working here, but you can just do like a quarter size dollop of the white to begin with. And I do want a little bit of black out just so I can make a light, soft gray. The other color that I might add into the background here, this is also really pretty. This is a cobalt blue. we'll keep a little bit of this nearby as well. We're just going to do like a little pea-size amount of that. All right, now let's go ahead and pick up our mama brush. Now your brush will be brand new, so it's important to take a little dip here into the water, dry off a little bit. Okay, now it's nice and flexible, just moist, ready to use. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up a little dollop of that white and just a super tiny touch of the black, very tiny, because I want just a very light gray. And it will almost appear to be white. You can just see how it's just barely gray. So add a lot of white to that. That's going to be our base. Now a little bit of water in here too. That's going to help make your paint more fluid, easier to work with over the top. Here. All right, so the background color we're going to work is just going to look like making little X's over and over again. I call it a little cross stroke. So I'm working again, feels like the letter X over and over and over again. And I'll be alternating between that white and that really light gray that we just mixed up. And then don't forget about just touching into your water every now and again, working that back into the paint. Again, that just helps make the paint a lot more fluid, easier to work with, spreads into the nice pores of the canvas. And just kind of push that back and forth. Now, as we start to, as we start to get near our shape here, I don't have to be too concerned about a neat and tidy cut in, because see, that's going to just bleed through. So I can just kind of be a little bit sloppy and just continue on with that nice therapeutic feel of just crisscrossing back and forth. If you feel like you just really want to be precise and get in there and be very meticulous about that, then my recommendation there would be to use your little bit brush and do a little twirl into that light color. Get a nice fine point, and then you can use this to be very precise and work in and around that shape. And then once you get back out to the larger areas, then you can switch back over to your mama brush. And if you start to, follow what I'm doing here, and maybe your paint, you're a little bit heavier handed, you've got more paint on there, you start to feel like you're losing the line work, and you don't panic. Just add a little bit of water to it, firm pressure, and that will definitely thin that out, and it will make that line really pop back out again. So there it is, to where you can see it. You don't lose that really important shape that you're going to need. So again, I'm just going to continue to paint this into the background. It's nice and light, and just continuing on with that cross stroke back and forth. I'll use a little bit of white in here too, and just crisscross back and forth. As I start to get a little bit more texture over the top, I'm going to hold my brush more parallel to the canvas. That's going to allow a lot more of that paint to really rest right on the surface. Becomes quite a bit more thick and opaque, so you can play with that and push that more all around that surface area. And then work back in around the edges here. Water helps make that more fluid. Just doing kind of a soft fade all around the bottom, because we have so much textural palette knife work that we're going to bring in at the end, that all this bottom layer here at the bottom will be just obscured by that palette work. So you'll see that when we get to that point. Right, so little crisscrosses back and forth. And crisscross back and forth. And a little more white, that fun texture. All right, so we are done with our background for the base. Now, if you want to add in some additional colors right now, super easy to do. Like I'm going to go ahead and push in a little bit of that cobalt blue. And now is the time because the paint is still a little bit wet, so we can just do little soft pushes back and forth. Lots of repetition on this and just that light crisscross back and forth. I'm using a light, gentle hand. We do a little bit more over here too, softly blend that in. Crisscross back and forth. Also push a little bit more white in there too to have a nice playful mix of those two. And then the rest, I'm going to just allow my palette knife work to kind of do that towards the end. So that I'm going to go ahead and call it quits on my background for right now. Let's go ahead and rinse out. And then let's dry off. Okay. Now let's go ahead and work on the base of our beautiful cows here. So we're going to go ahead and work with some burnt sienna. I'm going to grab another plate. Nice, like nickel-sized to quarter-sized dollop of your burnt sienna, and then also some raw umber. Working on that shadow base color first. Okay. And I'm going to be using the mama brush to begin with. Push a little water in there. It's two colors together. So again, burnt sienna, raw umber. It's like a nice warm chocolatey brown. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and work this into every place that you see fur. What we will leave blank at this point will be the fronts of the noses and then also the horns, because we're going to do a different color there. So I'm going to go ahead and just work in a nice base coat. And you don't have to worry about hair texture yet at this point. We're just trying to get in nice soft color as a foundation. So it could be a little bit like streaky at this point or splotchy. It's okay. This is just a base of color. Now I do want to be really careful when I come in around the eyes. So I do not want to overlap those. I don't want to lose that shape. So we're getting really close. So, and if you need, anytime you're going to be away from a brush for a while, I would actually, I'm going to squeegee out the residual paint here so we don't lose that. We're going to place this in the water. Paint does set up and dry really quickly on our brushes. This is acrylic paint. So you do want to place it in the water until you get a chance to really clean it and deal with it, because you don't want it to set up and harden on your brush. I'm going to do a little swirl here into that color. And then you're just going to hold it like a pencil. And I'm going to go ahead and put water to the tube. Little twirl. And then carefully line the eyes. Flow into the space. And then we're going to play along with the same when in Rome. So while we still have our little bit brush, I'm going to go ahead and do this meticulous work here first. And we're going to just do that cut and work around all the eyes so that we can relax a little bit here in just a few minutes and just go back to that bigger brush and just work all that in to the larger section of where we see first. So adding a little bit more water to this too really helps it flow into the canvas. Remember that as well, if you're struggling with kind of getting a dry brush look. And then I'm going to go ahead and work in and around the nose shape here. It's a finer detail, so I'm going to use the little bit brush for that. Way around. And let's go to the other side. So we're going to look in around this little eye here very carefully. You can see I got a little bit of white over the top of that eye. What I will do there, didn't really mean to do that, got a little sloppy. Should have protected that space a little bit more, but when all this sets up and dries, you can always use, since that's such a small, precise spot, and I'll teach you how to do it with paint, but you can also just use your permanent marker and re-blacken that. So I know that beginners really sometimes prefer the use of the permanent marker to get into those teeny tiny little details, especially if you have a shaky hand. I'm going to come around little nose shape. Bottom of the lower lip. Oh, you're good. That's out. Let's go back to right there. Mama. She had some water in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and mix that into that brown and that burnt sienna. That'll actually help us with applying more of this paint as our base. Again, we're just trying to get a nice wash of that dark brown. It's our first shadow of hint in there. Okay. Turn that handle a little more over to the side. A little bit of water runoff on that edge of the brush and to dry off a little bit. And this is just the first coat. So it will look a little sloppy and rugged to begin with. We're not doing any hair texture just yet, so. And I'm being really free and loose towards the end. This is all going to be, you can see how it's all just obscured with palette knife work. I'm going to be a little bit more careful here with the leg. So I've got a little bit more of that shape maintained in the original design. Just in case it's giving somebody some visual attention, and it might be, because it's kind of giving me visual attention, even though like I know it's going to be covered up. But There, if that makes me feel better. So, I need to reload with some more raw umber. Dollops like that, and then the bird semen. Get a little visual on the sizes there. And as I cut near an edge, I'm going to hold the brush more like you'd hold a pencil. That's going to let that line edge of the brush do that nice detail work. And then when I'm working into the solid part of the middle, then I'm going to turn that handle more over to the side. I see a few little white peekaboo spots, and I can pitch back into that. Smooth line here, and a curve around that ear. And soft curves. Continue on. And get full coverage with this dark shadow color all over wherever we see. Sure it flows into every part and smooth it out a little bit. And if there's some lines here, you want to make sure that you keep, and you can add a little bit of water too to make sure that you can still see that kind of bleed through. And you just want that light wash over the top. A little bit of water. All right, so we've got our nice little wash over the top. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. And now we're going to do the base over the horns. So I'm using my little bit brush and the black and the white. And we're going to make a nice dark charcoal color. A little coral. And just paint right into that horn. We're going to cover the whole thing with the gray to begin with. Turn this a little bit. little bit of water and twirl it again so I can get a really nice fine point. Go into that little tiny point of the horn. And a little twirl here. And a little water to it too, just to make sure that it really gets into that nice fine edge, you know, right next to the edge. Sometimes there's that little white peekaboo with the canvas, and so, and a little bit of water helps it flow into that space. A little bit of water, that black, that white, do a little twirl. And a tiny little point. And this is just that charcoal gray. We're going to cover the whole thing. And if you go over the fur a little bit there, it's not a big deal because we're going to be coming in with texture over the top. Going to cover that. Teeny tiny amount of water, the little taps, you don't get too much. I very carefully work that right next to the edge to get a nice fluid full line. And to do it just a teeny, I'm going to fix this eye real quick. Just put black back into that little section. So I just hold the brush just like you hold a pencil. And again, that's that little space where if you want to do that with a permanent marker, you can. Blackening there too. Okay, it's out. All right, now let's go ahead and start to work on this. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the horns a little bit here. So first step on this, I'm going to go right back into that white. So a little bit, it's all cleaned off. It's rotated out to a nice fine point. We're going to go into the white. And then I'm going to do a nice little line right at the top of the horn. So just make as thin of a line as you can. And we're going to take it all the way up to that point. And again, just line the top of that horn with that white. Pull this out, right off. And we're going to grab a little bit of our yellow ochre. I'm going to do a little touch into that. And then we're going to do a little bit of a slight overpaint right over that white. Water too. Soft blend. This is like transitioning that white into the next stage of that gray, but it's got the warmth of that yellow ochre, so there's a little bit of that soft blend to it. back in with a little more of that white right on top. Sometimes we have to work back and forth a little bit. Soft white right up near the edge. I'm going to go back into that darker gray and just come in at the base underneath. Really light hand. And light little drags of white again right over the top there. With that dark charcoal gray, we're just kind of reinforcing that at the base. It's kind of a playful dance back and forth between the two. Now other side here, same thing. We're going to look in a little bit of that white right at the top. Have a little bit of that yellow ochre. Come in right underneath. A little bit dark charcoal right here at the base. And a soft little overpaint right over the top of that yellow ochre. And just be really careful, light-handed when you get it near the edge. I'm going to take this brush and then I'm just going to do like a real light drag on the side of the brush. I'll softly blend in that white into that yellow ochre. And on the side, light drag on the side of the brush. Really light hand on that. All right, now let's go ahead and work in a little fun base on the nose here. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this white and we're going to mix this with that yellow ochre. Soft and creamy, let's grab a little bit of water. And carefully go into this shape. We want to make sure and keep those nostrils nice and black. If you do have a little bit of overpaint on there, remember you can always go back and retouch up with the black paint or with the permanent marker. And fill this in too. Same thing here on the other side. Really light, gentle hand. Remember to do that little twirl into the paint. That'll give you a nice fine point for that detail work. And the fun thing about this is that you can be as simple as you want to be or as advanced as you want to be. So, you know, if you want just more of a simple, you know, almost cartoony, cartoonish, you can certainly leave the front of the noses a little more simple like this too. It definitely looks like a fun little nose, and it's the right color, and it can just be simplified that way. Now I'm going to definitely go in and teach you how to add more shading and detail, but again, if some of that starts to intimidate you, then please don't, you can just leave it, you know, just like it is. It looks really fun that way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out a little bit here. Oh, I'm getting a lot of drying on my napkin. I'm getting some residual paint as I go to dry off. So stop that. Now I need some pink. So I'm going to be using, this is our Crimson Red. All of that. So I really like this vermilion. It's a nice, almost orange. Similar. All right, we're going to take a little bit, and we're going to take a little bit of this white. We're going to mix this into that Crimson Red. It's going to give us a nice light pink. Okay. Coral. All right, so right in here in the middle, I'm just going to do like a little sweep side to side to side. Take that all the way down to that line. Same thing here, start right where the nostrils end and just kind of sweep side to side. Take it down to a slight angle right above that line. Grab a little bit of that darker pink too and kind of sweep that in. After that. Here, so I'll do ultramarine blue. And a little bit of that crimson red. We're going to take those two together. That's going to give us a nice purple color. I'm going to keep this more blue, make that deep purple. We're going to keep it dark like this. And this is a little bit of that shading in here. Same little sweep here on the other side. We have a little bit of some lemon yellow. And some white. White. We're going to work in a little texture here over the top. Just kind of sweep this. One. Light little curve sweeps across the top here. Kind of do a little bit of a squiggle sketch into that pink to kind of softly mix it between the two. I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of an overpaint around this cream. Again, soft mix in with that pink so that it's not just a hard line. It's still a little bit wet, so you can softly blend into it. White with a yellow. Follow that in, nice fine point, and then I'm just going to lightly sweep across this one here. Go around that nostril area. Softly blend into that pink. Water in there too, makes it easier to put that all the way around. And do a light, little bit of a soft blend in with that pink. That light pink there, that light pink there. Rinse out. And then I have like a dark black shadow line that I'm going to bring in just here and here. I'm going to do it now to where it's like softly blended. I just add a little bit of water too. Sweep that around the base. Underneath. Again, nice soft black line here. And then I'm going to pull that all the way around that lower lip and softly work that in. Checking for a little bit of shadow in here, so I'm going to work that. And just a little bit of black. Little touches. Just kind of work on it, emphasizing that face right in there. Same thing here, kind of follows all the way down. I'm just kind of getting in that little bit of shadow. Something here, just working a little bit of that shadow with the black. And around. Any little black line here. Also going to do a little bit of shadow in the ear part. Come in handy. I'll do little sweeps of this. Kind of just like do like little downward curves. Side of the brush, just kind of push and then pull down. And then I come in with a little bit of that purple color. It's that blue and that red. Even though there's a little bit of black on the brush, it's okay. That kind of just, the black mixes with the red, makes like a crimson color. So it's actually a nice little shade in there. Just doing little touches of that shading. Checking for other places here. A little bit of that shading So a little bit of that light and shading right in through here, kind of comes down. And a little bit of shading here. And here. Shading here. Do little pushes with the brush. Purple. Up here at the base. Some of that ultramarine blue can kind of put in there too as a shade. All right, let's go ahead and rinse out. And now we can start to work on that beautiful hair texture. So I've got a lot of white up here. I'm going to be going back and forth into my white. I'm going to go ahead and pick up that yellow that I had on the other plate. And I'm also going to add a little bit more of my yellow ochre. We're using a lot of that. And I'll need some more of this burnt sienna. We'll be playing with some of that too. All of that. More raw umber. And grab that vermilion so it doesn't go away. So we have a big amount of that. Oops. I'm just going to do a little squirt of that here. I'm going to use a lot of that too. All right. So I've still got some of that vermilion on my brush, but I'm going to go into a lot of white here. And some of that bright primary yellow. There's too many. A lot of white, a lot of bright primary yellow. Still have a little bit of that residual vermilion on there that just gives a slight hint of coral, which is really pretty. So we have a lot of that working in here. So we're just going to leave that. And I'm going to start to work on the hair texture now. So using my little bit brush, we're just going to do some quick little strokes up. A lot of these little curves, they have a little bit of a feeling like little parentheses. And there's a lot of playing back and forth between all these colors. A lot of our earth tones, the yellow, the vermilion, the ochre, the burnt sienna, the little touches of that brown, that raw umber when it gets to be a little bit darker. So it's going to be a lot of repetition and a lot of just mixing back and forth with those colors. And a lot of white, yellow, and I don't know, water here, a little coral. Now, in that way, when you get to the end of the stroke, it's a little more precise. Starting to shift directions now. That white. So in that vermilion is that orange. Yellow ochre coming in there to play. Light that up a little bit. And play in through the surface area. To get the little light taper at the end, you want to lift off pressure. Just kind of really lift off with a light hand, and then that will give you that little fine point at the end of a hair stroke. So when I get those little tiny hair strands, I'm also just barely touching the canvas. So you might want to practice with that a little bit, because the heavier handed you are, the thicker that coat of hair is going to be. But it's really light and wispy. I'm just barely touching the canvas. Really light hand. Work that in here. And the colors won't be exactly the same on this. I always give myself the freedom, as should you, to not, this is a very playful process. You don't want to feel like you have to make it look exactly like what, I had in the first place. This looks a little different every time I do it. A bit of this. This is Viridian. Has a nice, beautiful, teal turquoise color to it. And especially when I do a little bit of that ultramarine blue in there, it can go more to that turquoise. A little bit. Just play with some more of this. I'm just gonna do quick little strokes of that. Just be a little bit more of that lime green, so add a little bit of yellow to it. Get some more of that in there. That's good. Just quick little strokes here. We've got our greenery nearby. Softly kind of placed in up in the field. Strokes in here too, little accents. little bit more of that ultramarine blue. A lot of that coming in here. Again, just little tiny, almost like little tiny dashes, dash strokes, working in little bits of texture. Very playful. Here. These little side sweeps. Orange. Some of that fun background coming into play. Little horizontal strokes. And as I mentioned, it does kind of come in over the top. A little bit of this just kind of plays in over the top of the body here. Soft, playful color in here. White. So this is almost like abstracted grass that comes in. We have like a little bit of a, in my imagination, this was just more like a nearby pond. You know, and then we have a little bit of grass that kind of here. It's very abstracted in there. Swoops back and forth. Let's go ahead and go back to our fur a little bit. We've got, you know what, I need more of that yellow. I think a lot of that up already. Pull a curtain. Let's see. Winter sun sneaking in. Sorry about that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my, there's my bright primary yellow, white, and a little bit of that burnt sienna. And that fur texture. Little tiny dash strokes. More of that yellow ochre. Yellow. Let that vermilion in there be really fun too. Right over the top. Yellow ochre and white's also really pretty. And little tiny soft strokes here and a little bit of water. Get that little twirl happening. Tiny soft curves here. Showing that texture. Little tiny strokes. A brown every now and again too. Is nice little way to softly blend in there, bring back a little bit of the shadow. Sienna again, I'm going to start to work that in here. Fishes of that. Having a lot more of that burnt sienna now. The top of the nose here, just gonna crisscross back and forth, and then on the side. And again, I'm really playful with coming back in with more of those colors we've been working with, like yellow and white. Textures, just like building lots of layers here. Careful around the eyes, definitely want to make sure and keep those intact. And just doing little tiny dash strokes around those. Just working a little bit of raw umber on the ear here. Move that in the top. Lots of layers. Working back and forth between our darks and our lights. And then the fur, It's almost like a lazy S. Yeah, add a little bit of curl to it. And then right hand. Remember to alternate your stroke like in diagonals, like some of them will go this way, some of them will go this way. So barely touch the canvas with those light strands. And sometimes you'll just want to rinse out and start over just to kind of, if it gets too full and fat of too many different colors all at once, sometimes it helps just to kind of clean up and restart a little bit here too. A little bit more of that vermilion and that burnt sienna. Looking in underneath this little eye here. Little tiny dashes. Burnt sienna, little tiny touches. Throw a little brown in there too. It can help add a nice little blended shadow in there. Let's see. Primary yellow now. Pushing that in back and forth, little tiny strokes. Back and forth between a lot of all these colors here. Little tiny dashes of, little pushes of color. Just pushed in that little bit of vermilion and kind of have softly kind of blend, so it's not so just boom pop, you know, you want to make it look like it belongs. So I'm pushing it around that with a little bit of this raw umber, and so it's softly kind of blending into it too. But then still leaving a little bit of that pop of color. And just little tiny strokes. Kind of vary them a little bit, just kind of push in different directions. Add a little bit of that yellow every now and again. It pulls in a little bit of that bright pop of color. It's really pretty to have that lighter orange in there. Grab a little bit more of my crimson pops happening, and that will mix with our white. And little tiny chunks of pink. Start to put that in there too. Little tiny like dash strokes. more of that pink, that's the crimson red and the white. Like to come back in, kind of follow that with a little bit of that pop of bright primary lemon yellow. So, touches of that. And then some of that ochre softens it. More of that vermilion, which is that orange. More of that burnt sienna. And then one. We'll push this one that bright primary yellow right over the top here. A little more white over the top of that. White pulls. Back into that bright crimson, kind of work that in. With honey touches. Or that cobalt blue, kind of pull that in with a little bit of white this time. Cool. Lighten up this back side here. We're gonna pull in a lot of that white, lemon yellow, and our white. And just lots of little tiny short strokes here. Chunk of white there. Well, there's a little bit more, I think, lemon yellow and white than people realize. There's a lot more of that in there to kind of help brighten everything up a little bit. that yellow ochre, bright lemon yellow, and that white. So just working in lots of texture. Have a little bit of water as needed in here too. It's going to really help that paint flow. Pink in here too. Ultramarine blue, color that back in. The light strokes, lots of light strokes, lots of texture. Bring that in with just a little bit more of the white highlights here. A little bit. And make sure I've got some pure white to kind of go into a little water. I'm going to twirl the head of the brush in there. Tiny strokes there. And right underneath that little horn, just kind of pull down those little tiny hairs in there. Repetition, a lot of layers here. Every time you look around, you think, well, that needs a little second coat, more texture. All right, so, and we're gonna work on a little bit of some eyelashes too. This really helps make the eyes pop with a lot of personality. So it's taking a little bit, I went ahead and cleaned it off so it wouldn't be too thick with paint. We want a nice, super fine point. A little bit of water in there too. Definitely have a nice fine twirl. So you got a really nice fine point. And then right over the top of this eye, we're gonna just act like we're lining our eyes. And make a few little eyelashes of him around there. Same thing here. Push. It's like your eye, lining your eyes. That really makes those eyes, really makes them pop a lot. And we're gonna do a little bit underneath here, a little bit of light right underneath. Touch there. It's amazing what that little bit of detail on the eyes just kind of helps pull that, it defines in a nice way. Softening this a little bit with that yellow green. And then you can keep coming back in with just really tiny, tiny little strokes of color. But you want to really be careful that your brush just barely touches the canvas. So they're just, those little lines are just very, very fine. So just a lot of repetition there on those. Looking down here. And little tiny fine hairs. Okay. Let's see. I think it's about time to do a little bit of that palette knife work. So with your palette knife here, we're gonna play with some of these colors. And I want my surface to be flat. So I'm gonna work into this and take some of this white. And I can start to work that into the background. I have a little bit of that residual blue left in there, but I basically just scrape down into a lot of that white, kind of push it back and forth, get the palette knife loaded up, and then I can just do light scrapes with that texture over the sky. I'm even using some of that white that I had kind of like poked into a lot with color, so there's little streaks of that color in there. That's creating some really nice texture in the sky that's almost like a little bit of cloud cover. So vermilion here. Look at that with the white. So you can play with your textures and just kind of do little tiny scrapes down here at the base. So I kind of pushed into this mix here. Again, that's my titanium white, my Viridian, a little bit of that ultramarine blue. And just kind of doing a little bit of a vertical push. Horizontal push and doing light scrapes over the base of the body here. It's really kind of obscuring a lot of what's happening down here. The light scrapes at the bottom. That's abstracting it a bit. A few little quick pushes. Remember that white from my other plate. I want to lighten up a little bit as I get into these sections. It's just mostly white, but it does have little residual bits of color. I'm just doing tiny little scrapes all around the surface area. And if you want, you can do a little bit of that crimson with a little bit of white too. Has a nice look to it. With a little bit of that here. Titanium white. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick wipe here. See, I had a lot of turquoise in there, so I'm going to go ahead and get that off. We're going to grab a little bit of that. Add some of that crimson red. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this. It's going to give me kind of like a light pink. So I can do like little tiny pushes of that, just like little tiny pushes and drags. Barely can touch the canvas and let me drag it across. You can see that palette knife where it becomes, you know, it's a little bit messier. It's very fun to play with that. And then you can also start to work on like little paint runs too, which is really fun. But a lot of that will just be, we take our little bit brush and with our wet paint here, we're just gonna start to do like little tiny touches of water that can run through it. And then if you want to have a little bit of color with it, then like I'm going to push into this Viridian. Let's make that real soupy. So, touch there. I keep pushing into that water and let that kind of do a little bit of a run down the canvas. Like those little water runs too. You can do different colors if you want. And in this particular paint, I kind of have them going all across the base. And they will start to weave in like little patterns into your paint that's already there. And you can do a different color if you want. So like I rinsed out, let's dry off a little bit. Let's go back into the water and our crimson, so red. Let's make that kind of soupy. Water in there. Just kind of pressing that. Little touches of that crimson also running through there. So very pretty. And you can keep working on this till the cows come home. Oh, that was so funny. Just cracked myself up. But it can definitely be, I can continue to work on this with lots more layers here. Little tiny strokes of hair. Or you can call it quits. We have a lot of texture in here, a lot of layers. And so our last step here would be to sign our masterpiece. Now, I'm going to give you my suggestion, which would be, usually beginners prefer the permanent marker because it's all dry, and then that's the key though. It has to be completely dry. Then you can use your permanent marker over the top and it will not ruin the Sharpie. If you use the Sharpie on top of wet paint, it'll just destroy your Sharpie and it won't work anyway. So I would let it set up and dry into your signature. Or if you want to do like old school painted signature, you definitely want to make sure that you use your little bit brush and you do that little twirl into any paint that you want. Get a nice fine point, and then you can, sign on top of your canvas like that. And I'm going to let mine dry and go back and find mine a little bit later. All right, but we are done painting this adorable little, this is my my cow couple. They're precious and lots of fun. We learned something new today with the palette knife and brushwork and paint drips. So very fun. All right. So again, all the supplies that you need are on our website, tipsyartist.com. It's been a pleasure painting with y'all today. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day, and we'll see you again here real soon. Toodles. Much love to y'all.